Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Kate Nelson, Plastic Free Mermaid, and Karina. Introduce yourself.
Hey, how you doing?
So today we are doing a little bit of an introduction to our online course, which is set up as a series of webinars called Rise to the Call. So a little bit of an agenda for you. We're going to just settle in, introduce the course, and welcome to the space. I'm going to talk about how I got started in environmental activism, how and then Kaz will talk about how she got started, what she's learned from the movement, what I've learned, strategies to become a part of the environmental movement. Kaz will talk about deep ecology and the work that reconnects. And then I'll talk about how to answer the call and being a regenerative activist. And then we're going to talk about the course because we really are hoping to invite you to participate in this course. It's for March 2019, and you can find more about this on my website, iquitplastics.com. So let's just first come into this space. We're going to take a deep breath. Take another one. It feels so good. We're just going to honor the land that we are in. I'm personally coming to you from Hawaii right now, the Big Island, honoring the traditional landowners and the elders, the spirits who continue to look after this land and who are trusting us, the people that are walking the earth, to take care of the land, which we all rely on. So thank you, spirits, thank you, guides, thank you, elders, for the trust and for the guidance always. I also want to honor the connectedness that technology is allowing us right now. Here we are able to share skills and talk story and support each other and build allies. And that's what really is important, especially in activism, is to connect, create this network and be able to share resources and share tools and strategies. So that's what we're building. And this is a recording. And this is how we're introducing our course, where we will get to work with you directly, one-on-one. So thank you for joining us. What is the course? Why are we doing this? Last year, 2018, was a tough one. A lot of natural disasters, a lot of untrustworthy people in power, a lot of pain and suffering, and people got really fed up. We all met our edge. So this year is a year of action. And it's really good. It feels so good to be in 2019 because people last year were like, this is it. I'm done. I want to be involved. I'm feeling this call to take action, to step up for my planet or for humanity, or for some sort of injustice is pushing me to want to get involved. And more people are feeling this call than ever. And we hear you. So that's why we're creating the course, because people want to help, but they don't always know how. We don't know what to do or where to start. But now is more important than ever to actually step up. So Kaz and I have teamed up to share our stories. We've both been environmental activists for over a decade each, almost 15 years each of us. So that's almost 30 years of experience in environmental activism. So we want to share what we've learned, give you a few tools and strategies to be a part of the movement. Introduce you to Deep Ecology and Joanna Macy's work that reconnects, which is a beautiful body of work that really supports activism, and invite you to our online course where your campaigns and ideas will be supported to fruition. So this webinar is your little taste and an opportunity for you to learn more about the course, and then and even learn some skills right here and right now. So that's the course. Again, it's available online at iquitplastics.com in the shop section. That's my website. So introduction to myself. My name is Kate. I'm also known as Plastic Free Mermaid. A little bit about me. I grew up an environmentalist. We went camping and hiking. My family was not, eating organic and growing lavender like I do now, I suppose. I was eating out of plastic, but we still had a quite eco-centric way of life. We love to be outdoors. And anytime we went camping or hiking, we always had to leave it better than we found it. So we had to clean up the trash around the campsite, even beyond our own campsite. So that kind of put me into a give back mentality. We always did service work, we always did volunteer work, and as I went to college, my volunteer work ended up being more environmental. I led a lot of campaigns throughout college, and I was always working for nonprofits with an environmental focus. 10 years ago, I started studying with a scientist at Jean-Michel Cousteau's Ocean Futures Society, a nonprofit based in Santa Barbara. So again, volunteering, putting in my time. And this scientist, Dr. Andrea Neal, taught me that plastic does not biodegrade. Like our banana peels and apple cores, it just breaks up with the sunlight into millions of tiny little pieces, which wash out through the waterways, into the oceans, into little plankton bellies, and bioaccumulate up the food chain. More about plastics everywhere else on all of my YouTube and channels and all of that. But from there, I was appalled at this true nature of plastic being so unnatural that I decided to quit plastic. So of all the things affecting the planet, this was one thing that I could focus on. I could reduce my contribution to the plastic pollution in the planet by just not using single-use plastics. So I quit using them. This is an extreme choice, and I was supported as I created a nonprofit with all my best friends called Save the Mermaids, where we became sparkly mermaids that would share the great lifestyle of living without plastics. Mostly we just educated schools, businesses, community groups around plastic pollution, and lobbied for policy change. I worked on the plastic bag ban in Santa Barbara, in LA, and then the state of California. That's when I really got my activist hat on. So that was really cool to be writing that bill. Then I moved to San Diego to work for Coast Keeper, where I worked in the marine debris department. It's more science for me. Then I took a marketing job. I wanted to learn more about the corporate structure. So I worked for a recycled plastic activewear brand as the marketing director for just over a year. Then I moved to Australia to live fully plastic free. Really went hardcore there, started making all my own stuff. And I was supporting existing organizations like Take 3, Surfrider. Instead of bringing Save the Mermaids there, I just kind of had a look like what's already in motion, what can I bring my energy to, my experience, what can I support? And yeah, I continue to just use my messaging, use my voice to bridge the gap between the general public and science of plastic pollution, all the data and like the scary stuff. And yeah, then I evolved into this kind of magical mermaid figure and was able to bridge the gap between my campaign work, my activism, and these mermaid retreats. So now I host mermaid retreats and take women and men on, people of all genders, on adventures where we learn environmental activism and also swim with whale sharks and sail around islands and have an amazing time. And then, yeah, plastics start to become on the global consciousness, which is exciting. More people are learning about it, but it's also heavy. They're weighing down. I don't know how to quit plastics. Then I met Karina, Kaz, and that was right around the time that I was learning about deep ecology, first introduction, and Kaz is a student of deep ecology, so it was really great to have these amazing conversations and learn about Joanna Macy's work and get tools to transform that heavy heart that so many of my network were experiencing, this like, and Joanna Macy and deep ecology give tools to transform that heaviness into action. So I felt really drawn to that, and then Kaz attended one of my workshops, and I was like, yes, we need to work together. So we're collaborating and sharing this work that reconnects, Joanna Macy's work that reconnects, as well as a mix of our own experience as activists. This year is huge for me. I'm joining a really big global campaign on plastic pollution, so I'm really excited to be sharing that with you all throughout and sharing what I've learned. So that's my intro. Now let's hear from Kaz.
Awesome. Hey guys, so it is so beautiful to be part of this international community. So I'm actually in Geelong in Victoria, Australia. So those who are not familiar with Australia, I'm right down the bottom, but on the mainland. And then been talking to Kate in Hawaii. So we're really blessed with this global community. And so I would also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I come to you from, which is the Wadawurrung people. And I think that's very important in this movement, particularly because a lot of our Indigenous people of the world have been living sustainably for thousands of years. So that we need to honour that. So it's great to be here. I think it would be great to give you a bit of a context about where I've come from and a bit of a background about my experience. So I'm originally social work trained, and I've specialised in mainly mental health, community development, and the impacts of climate change on poverty, social justice, and inequality. And as Kate said, I've been over the last 10 to 15 years working and volunteering in the movement. And that's on kind of various levels, from fundraising to working internationally in Sri Lanka about the inequitable impacts of climate change, to lobbying governments, to frontline activism, and working with local sustainability groups. So I think between the two of us, we have a variety of experience that we hope to share with you in this online course and also during this webinar. And then in the more recent years, I've moved my focus to deep ecology and nature connection. And I guess this is where, when I found this, it gave me the framework for what I already knew to be true in my body. And I'll go more into detail about what deep ecology is because it might be quite a new term for a lot of you. So I'll go into what that is later on in the webinar. But after some time of being involved in the work, I got the privilege of training under Joanna Macy in California. And she is kind of the grandmother of deep ecology and is the founder of the Work That Reconnects, which is what I now offer, and is this amazing environmental activist, scholar of deep ecology and general systems theory and Buddhism. And so mainly the work that I do now is about connecting people to come home to themselves and the earth, and using that as a way to find their unique role in healing of the planet. So that's where I'm more coming from in the last few years. And then I had the privilege within those 2 years to come across a woman named Claire Dunn, who has been my mentor and I've been apprenticing under, and she is a deep ecologist and a rewilder and has written the book My Year Without Matches, which was about her year living off the land of the Australian bush and really reconnecting to the essence of what it is to be human and what it is to be animal. And then, over the last year, I decided I got a real call to develop a project called Eco Voices, and I was traveling around Australia connecting with various people and organisations who were working with species that were being affected by climate change and habitat destruction. And this project really aimed to provide a voice to the voiceless and capture within interviews that I conducted moments of connection between humans and animals, and using these stories of love and connection as a gateway to remind people of our interconnectedness of all life and encourage them to kind of fall back in love with the human world and the natural world. As you know, humans are quite emotive creatures, and we respond less to facts and figures and more we protect what we love. And so it was working on that. And it was through this project that I came across Kate, and have been following her work for a while, and it just seemed to be this perfect alignment. And then, as like Kate said, for me this year is about collaboration and connecting and being part of joint projects. And this is where this online course kind of evolved, and the webinars kind of evolved from there. So from that, what did I learn along the way, and where did I start? I think for me, mine started a little bit unexpectedly. My mum took me along to a documentary on climate change, and then there was all these people there, and there was no platform for young people to be involved. There was no young people there. There was no opportunities or solutions that were being offered around an avenue for young people to make a difference. And it was this disempowering space for a young person to step into, is like, whoa, look at this huge issue, but we're not going to provide you within your circumstances and your age group any solutions. And it was from this awkward teenager who really didn't like leading, that I kind of put up my hand. And on that day, I made a choice, and I was like, okay, does anyone want to join me in creating a platform and a group for young people that complements the amazing work that's already happening, but allows people to be able to have a voice and make a difference within their capacity? And so I think it was that first step that came out of nowhere, and I really kind of didn't want to do, but I'm so glad I did, because from there everything's kind of snowballed into this beautiful whirlwind that I now call my life. And yeah, in reflection of that moment of like that start, you know, that first step, that it really comes down to moments, and the importance of whether to rise or turn away. You know, I had an option that day to sit back and not do anything and put my head back in the sand. And I kind of really wanted to do that, because I wanted to follow other people. I didn't want to be a leader or stand up or be seen. But when it really came down to it, the call I was hearing was bigger than myself and my own insecurities and what I was comfortable to do. And so I just had no choice but to stand up. And from that, I feel like throughout my experience, it's been really about, you know, it's about putting your hand up and putting your hand out. And I say that a bit to people, and it's those two actions, up and out. And putting your hand up is in regards to saying, you know, volunteering, saying yes to opportunities, leading, being seen for what you stand for. And then putting your hand out is like, okay, well, we need to bring people along with us. We need to make connections. We need to gather support, and we need to gather diversity, that, you know, what do I not have? And we need to have different people from different backgrounds, skills, all that kind of thing. But also the hand out in regards to, well, when do I need support? You know, that mentoring, that advice, someone to help guide you. And I feel like I've been really privileged to find people but along my way, but also I only found them because I asked, you know, and I made that connection. Yeah, and so it's really that those two actions for me has been really key in the last 15 years. Another thing that I found is quite important is what I touched on earlier, is about the importance of being seen. And I've learned that there's a vulnerability in being seen, but it is only when we're fully showing ourselves and stand strong in what we believe that we can inspire people, that people can respond. And for a long time, I kind of was like, oh, my environmental stuff is here and my friendship stuff is here and my community, and I want to keep them separate, and I have to feel awkward bringing it up. But it's only then when you really do rise that you can find your tribe and your community. And that's how I found Kate as well. You know, had she not been such a public figure, or had I not reached out to her, that hand out action, we never would have kind of come out across each other, and we would have created this space. But yeah, I feel like it's a big learning curve for me, that one. And also, I think the last thing I'll leave you with is that the world just needs you. It needs not just the people who are specialized, trained, have massive ideas. It's like, no, it needs every single one. And you don't need to be a specialist to make a difference. Most of the times I knew very little about what I was doing. I was just like, I am here I'm offering this as myself, and I want to make a difference. And that's all we really need to do to start, and things tend to just flow on from there. We can learn along the way. We can get those people who are the experts in. It needs every, like, this time of the world is poignant, and it needs every single one of individual in the world to step up. And so, yeah, there's so much else I could share with you, but I'm just going to leave it at that because, it could go on and on and on. But I'll pass it over to Kate, who's going to, share what she's learned as well.
Thanks, Kaz. Yeah, as you can see, there's so much material here that we're so excited and eager to share with you, which is why we're like, all right, let's host a course. Let's get people in so we can share this with you. What I've learned along the way, I've been in this space for so many years and playing all different roles within this activism, within this movement. And something, one of the main things, and what I'll start with, is solutions. This is so important. When I first joined the environmental movement, it was like doomsday, the oceans are dying. Sign the petition. It was like very aggressive, kind of forceful, trying to get people's money or get people's signatures. And that doesn't feel good energetically. It doesn't resonate. It doesn't make people want to join and oh, this is something positive that I want to be a part of. It's like fear tactic. And so having solutions, keeping it positive is what has given, I attribute a lot of my success to, is just keeping it positive, being kind of this sparkly, magical mermaid that's sharing solutions that people want to join in because it's fun. I'm coming from a place of love, not fear. I'm coming from a place of like welcoming, inclusiveness, not like, this aggressive energy. So solutions, positivity. Number two, I've learned along the way, having a narrative, having a story can really help people wrap their brain around this. So keeping the narrative for your campaign or for your movement consistent, so that people can kind of follow. If like I have this kind of mermaid magic narrative, people can always tune in to me, to my channels, and see that I'm like adventuring and I'm in the ocean and I'm meditating and I'm taking care of my body with yoga and with swimming. And I'm also living plastic free, creating this sort of lifestyle narrative that people can kind of like flow in and out of. Same as with campaigns. It just helps people kind of attach to. It's like wrapping the brain around your campaign because you have a hashtag, you have like videos, you have an introduction, a climax, and an end where there's a call to action. And we'll talk more about that in the online course. Number three, working together. Power of collaboration. Kaz definitely touched on this because this is really important. I've totally been, and many activists have been, the solo activist who thinks like, we just need to do this. I'm just going to get out there and do it myself. And that's how you burn out. It's just not natural to try and take on saving the world by ourselves. It's like, I use the word not natural because I love how we incorporate a lot of the teachings of nature into our work, into our campaigning, into our life. We want to live more connected to the environment, so so it's good to use words like that. Just as like one tree does not form a forest, one person alone is not going to save the planet or inspire the world. A community of people, a tribe, it's taking all of us. Like Kaz said, we all play a role. We're all important. So working together. And that's, again, like what Kaz will talk more about ego versus eco. So yeah, and why when I went to Australia, I wasn't just like, my nonprofit, Save the Mermaids. Like, yeah, no, I've supported other existing campaigns. And then number four, just like having some skills. So that's why we're doing a course. I learned from my girlfriend who's the head of Greenpeace Pacific. She taught me, their tactics and their strategies for campaigning. How to write your vision, your worldview, and then from there, what your goals are, the headlines that you want to achieve, and from the headlines, what the strategy is to achieve those goals, and then the strategy, underneath the strategy, the tactics, like like your to-do list. So we talk a lot about that in the course, about how to build a campaign. And that's really important, just to have some foundational idea of how to launch a campaign, how to write and build a campaign and build your team. Number 5, ask for help, kind of like what Kaz said. You want to have the right team, you want to support existing organizations, and we can help you build that in the course to build the right team. And then obviously, like, communicating, being able to communicate with each other and build trust by being accountable. And then number 6, the last one, is just start. You don't have to be a master or a PhD or a scientist. Don't be a perfectionist about this. As Kaz mentioned, we just need to step up and we just need to start somewhere. So really wanting to empower you that you don't need to have all the answers, that we just need to begin. And everyone's coming together. Someone will have the skill that you don't have, and that's when you form a team. And you allow them to shine, just like nature. We're going slow and we're evolving and we're going with the flow. So those are some of the key things that I've learned along the way. And because of our experience and what we've both learned along the way, we have put together some strategies to support you to find your place and your role within the movement. And this is some of the meat of the course. So Kaz, in a moment, will talk about the deep ecology and the work that reconnects, some of this like really beautiful theory that we can apply to our life and our call, this like feeling this call to step up. And then we also give you the strategies to be a part of the movement. So a lot of what I was talking about a moment ago, about what I've learned through my work with Greenpeace and other organizations, just some strategies and some real skills to write your campaign and build your team. Other things that are important is to narrow your focus, to pick your topic. Like I chose plastics. I was like, of all the things, plastic is something that I can make a difference around. And narrowing my focus really helped me not get distracted. Of course I want to join the Stop Adani campaign. And of course I want to, campaign on all these issues that resonate with my heart and my soul, and my desire to live on a healthy planet, coexist with other healthy, happy humans. But if we say yes to everything, that's spreading ourselves too thin. That's not honoring our boundaries as an activist, as a human, as a sovereign being. So sometimes we have to practice saying no. And it helps us to learn that as we just say, okay, what's my passion? What do I most care about? What do I have access to? What do I have resources to? What community am I part of? There's a little focus. And we can help you with that. And then staying informed on the issue. So I set Google alerts. I get newsletters. Hone your feeds so that you're following other activists and campaigns that you'd like. You can get ideas from and then repurpose them. Recycling ideas that have worked. So yeah, just narrowing your focus, staying informed, identify your skill sets and talents that you can contribute. Literally just make a list. Like after you listen to this, maybe pause and make a list of everything that you're good at. Are you good at social media? Can you take great photos? Do you have a lot of contacts in media or government? Can you do great video on your iPhone? Like that's easy, but if you know how to do that, you can add that to an activist group that maybe is full of like older people that aren't quite as tech savvy. So these are skills. Maybe your spreadsheets or fundraisers or websites. Make a list of what you're good at. Honor yourself. And then seek out existing organizations and campaigns that need support. We both already kind of mentioned this, but it's important to reiterate that we don't want to just go out and start our own thing. There's probably something that's already in motion that could really use your support. So this is where we really feel into, am I part of an ecosystem where I can come contribute and add to, or am I like an ego by myself starting my own campaign? I'm going to do it myself. Because then, you're isolated and that's not natural. And that's like, you're going to burn out. It's going to be harder to recruit people to your cause when you could just join another cause and really help lift something up. And on that note, I like to remind us to just have humility, be part of laying the foundation we learn a lot when we join other campaigns. There's usually some epic elders who've been working on that issue for 20 years, 30 years, and they have a lot of wisdom that we just can't, I mean, as much technology as we're savvy around, we need to learn and we need to support them. And it's really important for us as a part of the ecosystem to honor the elders and learn from them. And again, it's just time to work together. And that's basically us being a part of one world instead of just solo ego-driven people. So being this huge one world, many ecosystems, it can be overwhelming. So just narrowing the focus, starting local. So if you're not sure what to be involved in, just look what you have going on locally. That's a really good place to start. Just like we like to eat local, buy local, shop local, like volunteer local, campaign clean your beach. Don't worry about like beaches in Indonesia, like clean your river, inspire your local community, see the trash that's collecting in your neighborhood and be like, oh, McDonald's. Okay, maybe we make a McDonald's campaign. Oh, straws, Starbucks straws. Oh, maybe we target Starbucks, like that helps us. When we volunteer local, when we focus local, then we are kind of like, oh, this is something that we can focus on. Got it. Hey, look, all these people that are with me. Maybe we're a team. So that's how something evolves organically. That's natural. And then that's how you pick a team. You can recruit your friends. And in the course, we talk more about how to build a strategic team and different team types. And then live it. So a lot of the work that we're doing that Kaz and I are really excited about is inward work. We don't want to just be like this martyr. We don't want to be inauthentic. We want to live what we're teaching. We want to practice what we're preaching. This isn't about like seeking PR for your personal brand to be like, I'm so eco. No, we need to get our hands dirty. We need to make some sacrifices. Going without plastics really helped me. It was these sacrifices daily that helped support this greater mission, this greater commitment to my ideology, to my environmental commitment. And that's what's important, because that's what makes this sustainable. Being a little bit uncomfortable at times, going without, bicycling, benefit, exercise, and just, applying these natural principles to our lifestyle, to live local, composting your negative emotions, working within your community. So all of these things are really beautiful to adopt into your daily life. And so this is some of the meat, some of the juicy yumminess of the course that we're really excited to share with you. And we have a lot more specific strategies that we're going to be sharing with you in the course, as well as activities and things like that you can be involved with. All right, so now on to Kaz around deep ecology.
Beautiful. I love hearing what everyone's learned, because it really resonates with my heart. So Kate really wanted me to share a bit about the concepts that I work under, and I won't have time to go into much detail about them, but we will have the opportunity to delve further into them in the course. But I just wanted to introduce the topics, 4 concepts, which is deep ecology. What is it? What does that even mean? What is your ecological self? Active hope. How does that differ from passive hope? And the 3 stories of our time, which is about the importance of story and narrative in the movement. So deep ecology is essentially the understanding that we are part of a larger whole, that we're part of a larger living organism. So it's the recognition of the profound interconnectedness of all life, and that we are part of the earth rather than separate from it. So many of us in Western society have been unfortunately encouraged to think of ourselves as separate, separate from each other, separate from other living things, separate to nature. And it's through this lens of separation that we've become disconnected from the very thing that keeps us alive. And in essence, some of us have forgotten who we are in the larger story of life. And so part of this work in deep ecology is about returning to this knowing so that you're belonging to the earth, and living from that place of knowing so that you can act on behalf of life, so that your actions and ways of being in the world choose life. And when I say choose life, I'm referring to the concept that in every moment we have the option to choose life or to not choose life. And to choose life is, for me, is to act towards creating a future that holds life, that honors all life. And so deep ecology is about choosing life and about a deep remembering. It's about returning to what many Indigenous cultures all around the world have always known. And that's that we are nature, and what we do to nature, we do to ourselves. And so with this understanding, when that really lands in our body, a shift happens and we move from a more ego-centered self, about the individual, to an ecological self. An ego self is what many of us function from. It's how we've been socialized to think and be in the world, so it makes sense. The majority of our systems in our current societies also support and encourage us and rely on that separation to keep their systems working. So the ego self works on more like a pyramid hierarchy, where with humans sitting on top and animals, nature, ecosystems falling below. And it's through this hierarchy that we feel entitled to take what we want from nature without considering any of the consequences. But it's like this model of disconnect from reality, and it is an unsustainable way for ourselves and also for the planet. So an ecological self shifts from that more pyramid thing to a circular system, and acknowledging it's a real acknowledgement of the importance of the web of life, and that we are just one cell of a larger living and complex organism and system. And in the ecological self, our perception shifts from the needs and wants from the individual, so about me, and me is the most important thing, and what do I need and want, to that of the collective. That's the shift. It broadens our sense of self to incorporate many others, including other humans, other animals, and the earth and nature itself. And so one of my favorite, I've written it down here, so I'm going to read it, sorry. But one of my favorite quotes by Joanna Macy is, when we perceive our deeper identity as being an ecological self that includes us and not just us, but all life on earth, then acting for the sake of the world doesn't seem like a sacrifice. It seems like a natural thing to do. And for me, that's where the difference comes, is where you shift to an ecological self. Things, giving up plastic, acting on, like, being an activist and all that kind of thing, don't feel like, a sacrifice or you're giving up something, but it's just a natural way. Being any other way would not make sense to you, because you would be harming yourself in doing those things. And so it's natural. It's just that flow of being. And I think that's why this is so relevant to us today in this conversation, because when we do connect into that identity, things become less of a task and a have to, and simply how we are in the world. And from my personal experience of having journeyed through this work and continuing to journey, it's an amazing experience to hold a broader sense of self, because in life, everything becomes more beautiful and more fascinating and more mysterious, and more magical. And it's through this work that I've received this profound sense of belonging and feeling of deep connection since I've opened up to more of an ecological self. And the Work That Reconnects by Joanna Macy really helps us to open and connect into that sense of self. And that will be part of the course as well. And then there's active hope. And it is really important to recognize that we are part of an extraordinary moment on the earth, where we have access to profound technology and energy that has advanced us in so many ways. But at the same time, we are witnessing a destruction of life in dimensions that really hasn't confronted any other generation in recorded history, really. But whatever situation we face, we need to know that we can choose our response. And I don't know about you, but I often come up against the statement, whether within originally within myself or within others, of, what's the point? There is no hope. And this is where active hope comes in, because luckily, from my perspective, there is hope, and we're at that pivotal time in history where our actions decide the future of humankind. However, if you cannot see the hope in the current circumstances, this is where the concept of Joanna Macy's work helps and comes in, which is a concept called active hope. And active hope is a practice and an action. It's where you look at a certain situation at present and identify the outcomes that you hope for, and then take direct action and steps towards achieving it. So it doesn't require you to be optimistic, or it doesn't require you to wait for the perfect circumstances for you to have a passive hope. So active hope is something you do and not something you have. And it moves us from, why I find it useful is because it moves us from a passive mind frame in this environmental crisis to identifying exactly what it is that we hope for and the planet that we want to create. And it allows us the energy to act towards that. And it's a practice that we can use to move forward with a powerful and purposeful life. And it can also be a helpful tool when we explore the stories of our time, which is the next thing that I want to really touch on, is that there's, in Joanna Macy's work, she identifies 3 stories of our time, or versions of reality, that are essentially happening simultaneously at this moment of time in our planet. And understanding these stories can be helpful because it helps us identify where we currently sit and where we want to move towards and where we want to be. And so the 3 stories is business as usual. And that is the story of the industrial growth society. And it's the defining assumption is that there's very little we need to change about, what we're doing and the way we live, and that extreme weather events and such things are just temporary difficulties that we'll surely recover from and maybe even profit from. And so it's that business as usual mentality. And then there is the great unraveling, which is often brought to us by scientists and the news and sometimes activists as well. And that draws attention to the impacts of the business as usual story. And, you normally includes things such as, how we're experiencing the world, with resource, depletion, climate change, social division, war, all that kind of stuff. And essentially the ongoing collapse of our biological and ecological and economic systems. And it really highlights that and focuses on that as their narrative. And it is not it's not an untrue story. It is a true story, but it is not an empowering story. And then the last one is the great turning. And it is a story of those who see the great unraveling, acknowledge it, that it's happening, that these things are occurring in our world, but have decided that they don't want that to be the last word, that story is not going to be our last thing. And it's an involving of a new and creative human response that enables us a transition from the industrial growth society to a life-sustaining society. And the great turning is really beautiful to be aware of as a story and as a narrative, to be able to know, get energy from that around moving forward, but also to bring people along with you. And there's countless individuals and cultures all over the world that are working towards redefining our future will be. No, the great unraveling is not our last word. This is how we want to be, and utilizing active hope with moving forward. And so I guess that the course also helps us to question what is our narrative? How within the Great Turning, how do we implement it? How do we tap into our unique expression about what we can bring as an individual to the Great Turning, and how do we really connect into it, because maybe it doesn't feel accessible to us. So that's where those stories and narratives are very important, because it's how humankind have developed to learn and understand, and it gives us a context to work from. And I think, this flows on to what Kate is about to share, which is around like how do we answer the call to rise, and more about what the course is and what we're offering and how that might look. Yeah.
Thanks, Kat. I mean, there's so much there. It's so fascinating. I love learning about deep ecology. I love living deep ecology. I mean, there's so much there. So I really hope that if you're interested, definitely join us for the course. Look up Joanna Macy, read about deep ecology, get it in your life. So important. And yeah, I as Kaz and I have both felt the call and have answered it. And that might feel really conceptually out there for you. And so, how do we hear the call? How do we, if we feel this pull to join, how do we take action? This is what we're talking about. This is the juicy stuff. This is that like kind of tipping point, this point in our life when we're going along and we're like, things aren't feeling very good. I'm not really liking what is happening around me, maybe in my neighborhood or in the global, in the world. How do I get involved? So that's where we're going to use all of this stuff, all of this theory, all of these strategies to support you as an individual, as one person, to become an activist, to whatever that means for you, wherever you're looking to create change. We want to support you so that you're not just like out there on your own battling, trying to make change because you feel this passion, you feel this like need to contribute, which is important. We're like, yes to that. That is what we want to help you birth and nurture into something sustainable. And not just sustainable, because that's a little bit of a buzzword, and we always kind of kill buzzwords, right? We're like green movement, eco movement, organic, put it on all the stuff, even if it's not even organic. So it's similar with sustainable. It's like, yes, sustaining, but we're not like, we don't want to sustain what we're doing right now. That we're overshooting. We're using too much. We're consuming too much. We're not really at a point where we want to sustain. We want to be at somewhere where we're regenerative, where we're like connected to nature, where we're eating food that we grow or someone nearby grew, and then we're composting, and it's like circular. We're part of the cycle, and we're going to apply that sort of framework to you, to our course, to as we nurture you into the activist, to really be able to create lasting change. And this is the invitation to join us, to become a part of our network, and to build this new earth, this new society that we want to live in, the future that we want to be a part of. Instead of just talking about it and being like, it's like, let's start creating it today, right now. Every moment is an opportunity to create the world that we want to be a part of through our actions. We're like, oh, you know what? Actually, this food doesn't really like nourish me and nurture my soul, or it's not really in alignment with the world that I want to be a part of. So like, I'm not going to eat that, or not going to buy that, or not going to be a part of that conversation. Like, making these changes, that's where it begins. These are the little shifts that really make a difference. And so creating the future and supporting you so that you have like-minded peeps, your community, who are on the same page. And then setting your personal boundaries. We're going to talk a lot about that so that you don't burn out. So you don't say yes to everything, like, oh my gosh, I'm an activist, I got this, I'll support you, I'll help you. No, you don't have time. You need to set personal boundaries, work on your stuff. and making it fun and playful so that it's not like a chore, you know, that's really important. Taking care of ourselves, healthy self. So again, being regenerative, so sustaining something, we need to make sure first that we're healthy before we want to sustain that. And that's where it spills out healthy self into healthy planet. That's in line with that, we have a lot of meditations that we'll be sending you each week. Spending time in nature, so going out, creating your nature rituals, creating your nature practice. We spend so much time indoors. Like, we're supposed to be outside. We breathe air and drink water. So we're going to help reconnect to nature. And that cultivates the spiritual strength that really allows us to be activists. Like, we're kind of like the Zen yogis of the movement, right? You know, like, we're like, oh, I see how, you know, you really need to take so much, and like, you just have this like hole inside of you that you really need to take and take and take all the resources and sell them to buy more stuff. Like, I really want to help you heal that, you know? So it's coming from this place of like grounded strength, like a tall tree, like not walking in like anxious, like, we need to help the planet. Like, no, we're like, we're here, we're held, we're supported, we've got the network. So that's what we're cultivating, is like sustainable, strong activists. And if you're here and now, if you're watching, if you made it this far, you know, you feel that call, you feel that pull, and it's up to you to take action, to start. And I can talk about how to build a team, and we're both, you know, we've got a lot to offer you, and that's why we're doing a course, this webinar series. You know, it's not a voice whispering from God, like, plastic pollution, Kate, like, that's what you're going to focus on. It's up to you. You get to choose whatever inspires you most, where you have passion, you know, this unending energy for this topic. So if you want support in that, if you want to help kind of figure that out, narrow your focus, and then build your team and build your campaigns and help change the world, join us. Yeah. You can find out more about the course at iquitplastics.com. Click the little tab shop. It's a month long, March. We've got, we'll send you weekly emails. Every email you'll receive, every week you'll receive an email with a little intro video on the topic that we're talking about. You'll have a meditation and a nature practice. You'll have some activities. There'll be some like inspiring stuff in there. And that'll prepare you for the webinar that we'll have later in the week. And that webinar will be similar format to this. Kaz and I will be co-hosting. You'll be there. We'll present the material. Then we'll have the discussion. And it's going to be really fun. I love connecting one-on-one with people. You know, I do a lot of Instagram and social media stuff where I'm just like presenting stuff out. So it's really nice to connect and support you. And right now we have a deal on sale course. So it's $347 US for the next 3 days. So it's normally $750 US. We value our time, we value our expertise, and we value our energy that we're putting into this. We've worked really hard to make this really epic and concise and like yummy, helpful nuggets for you to digest and take in and affect the world. So this is a really valuable offering that we're both really proud of, and we'd love to have you. And that's why it's like half price right now the next 3 days, so that if you're like, I really want to do it, but $750 is too much for me right now, here you go. Here's $347. So yeah, jump on that. iquitplastics.com is where you can buy it. And definitely, we also have a version that's just $150 US, which is just the emails. So that makes it, you know, you don't have to be present to the webinars or the discussions. If you just want to get the emails with the topics and the downloadable activities and the tips and tricks, you can totally do that. So that's a great way to receive all the content for a fraction of the price. So yeah, so we've talked a lot at your face, and we just want to connect with you. So I really hope that if you're interested, please email myself or Kaz, or just sign up, just take the lead in creating this world with us. My email is, for this, please use hello at iquitplastics.com. That's how you can reach me. And Kaz, how can they reach you?
ecovoices2018@gmail.com. That's the easiest one.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you, gals. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And we really look forward to connecting with you and meeting you. And hope that you take the leap and join us for our course. Any last words, Kaz?
No, it's thank you so much for joining us and watching this and getting this far. I also wanted to mention that if you watch this after March, that there will be a passive online course without the webinars that will be available, so that the email thing just will live there. So if you get to this and you're like, oh my God, I would have loved to have done that, how sad, it's actually April, then that's still an option. You still can connect into the work, and that's beautiful. So that's also an option. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. It's really beautiful to have an international community. Yeah.
Great point. Thanks for that. All right. Lots of love, you guys. Have a beautiful day. Keep breathing. Hope to see you soon. Bye.